So what does Georgia need to do to win the 2021 Peach Bowl? I've got you covered on that, so it's going to be quite a long video, so stay with me and I'll give you all the details. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. And I want to make sure to point out to you right here at the top of the screen, you can see it. You can read this article on Dog Post, doesn't cost anything. Just make sure that you sign up for the newsletter when you get there. This is about a 3,000 word article, so it's pretty in-depth. I think the number one thing you're talking about doing or trying to do is to slow down Desmond Ritter. Now, who is Desmond Ritter? He's their quarterback, and he's Cincinnati's quarterback. He's averaging about 300 total yards a game. I would say a pretty good runner, more natural to him than throwing, but he's really developed over the last couple of years. This is a Cincinnati team that lost 42-0 at Ohio State about 22 games ago. But that's like comparing Georgia's, talking about Georgia and comparing to them with what happened against Alabama and Florida. This is a totally different Georgia team right now. So for Cincinnati, he's going to have to play well. And if Ritter plays well, that gives Cincinnati a pretty good chance to win the game. I think for me, what happens in these situations is that when you have one guy on a team that's really good, dealing against the defense like Georgia's that is, pretty solid across the board, you need more than one weapon. Now, Georgia this week has talked about how good the Cincinnati receivers are, saying they're the third best receivers that they faced this year behind the Gators in Alabama. So if that's the case, that means they're legit. But it really is about Ritter. And a couple other things to keep in mind here. They really throw it on first down, Cincinnati. So that's an important thing to remember. They're not, and the other thing here is that Ritter has thrown the most interceptions he's thrown all year have come on first down. That's probably because they throw more on first down. But on top of that, they're really not great on third down in terms of production. What I mean by that is twofold. First of all, they actually are good in getting conversions, probably because they're so good on first down, generally speaking. But in terms of yardage, etc., Ritter is not as good there as he is on the other downs. So that's one big thing to remember is slowing him down. I think Cincinnati's going to score. Now, if they don't score, okay. A lot of people behind the scenes, not in the football program, but just in football, generally speaking, they're kind of trying to figure out whether these guys are like Missouri or Auburn. I think they're certainly better than Missouri. The question is, are they a lot better than Auburn or not? Because it's hard to tell with the schedule they play. Let's just be honest. Number two on this whole thing, make sure JT Daniels is playing well. He's played well most of the year. Most of the time he's lined up in Silver Britches, he's played well. I don't know if Cincinnati is going to be able to slow Georgia down in terms of their run game. This is not a bad Bearcats defense, but so Georgia and Cincinnati are in the same ballpark defensively in terms of statistics, but Georgia in accumulating their statistics have played Alabama and Florida. Cincinnati has not played anybody like that. The AAC has some decent offenses for sure, but like for instance, Army slowed down Cincinnati in the run game pretty well. I think they had fewer than 100 yards against Army rushing. So that would be a formula for sure. But again, if Ritter's going to be going for 70 yards, getting to 100 is not that tough to do for everybody else. So he really is the key there. But back to the offense for Georgia. If you're doing what you need to do on the ground, and who's stopped Georgia in the run game this year? I'm asking the question. In all of the games that they played, very rarely did Georgia just get stopped. I think in the Florida game was the closest to that, but that was because the quarterbacks were so bad, okay, in terms of their play that night or afternoon. Against Kentucky, against Alabama, against South Carolina, against Missouri, Auburn, Tennessee, Arkansas. Arkansas did a decent job. But I don't know if Cincinnati's going to be able to slow Georgia down. We heard a lot about Missouri slowing Georgia down. Didn't happen. This offense, too, has got a lot of momentum. It's not been that long since they've played. It's been a little bit of time. It's not been that long. It's basically been 2 weeks. So let me make sure I'm right about that. It's not been a tremendous amount of time. I mean, they played Missouri on the 12th. They will play Cincinnati on the 32nd, basically. So 20 days, so 3 weeks almost. And losing that Vanderbilt game probably hurts Georgia on that front. But they practiced that whole week, just didn't play the game. So everybody's had this 2 week off period. Cincinnati played on the 19th, so does that help them? I don't know. This Georgia offense was hot. Kirby's been talking about how they've been practicing well. I get why this game, I do not think people should just dismiss Cincinnati's chances to win this game. This is not Hawaii. This is not Coastal Carolina. These are legitimate guys. These are guys that can score. I don't know if they can stop Georgia in terms of the run game. And once that starts, you're talking about a different ball game completely. I mean, Georgia should have run more against Alabama than they did. They just stopped running. That was a mistake in that game because that was a winnable game, quite frankly. People forget that Alabama's playing way better now than they did at the time, for sure. But you're going to the fourth quarter. You stick to your guns there, and things are a little bit different, perhaps. Probably not, but perhaps. So anyway, getting back to this game, you start running the ball effectively. The way that you came out against Kentucky and Florida and Carolina and Mizzou, you come down with that sort of urgency offensively and play that well, it's going to be tough for Cincinnati to keep up for a 4-quarter game. I do think that there's one other thing that's kind of quirky to talk about, which is that Cincinnati's only played 3 games in front of a crowd. And this will be the largest crowd that they play in front of. On top of that, it will be a Georgia-heavy crowd. And on top of that, it will be in a dome. For those of you who have never been in Mercedes-Benz or just a dome generally speaking, I can tell you that Mercedes-Benz is an abnormally loud place. And I don't mean loud necessarily when big plays happen. Yes, it's extraordinarily loud then. There's just a lot of buzz constantly in that facility. Of course, it can't go anywhere. There's nowhere for the stadium noise to go away from. You always have the heating and air conditioning units are always going on. You've always got the sound for just chatter. So it's a kind of an odd place to play if you're not constantly playing there. This will be Georgia's fourth year, but 5th game, I think, playing in that stadium, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but they played there a few times. Needless to say, national championship. Yeah, so this will be their 5th games because they played twice in 1 year in 2017. So back to back years in playing there in a lot of games. So they'll be used to it. But at the end of the day, Georgia, I think the one thing that's going to make a difference here, Georgia's a better team. They have better players. But they also know what they're getting into now. What I mean by that is this is not like the 2019 Sugar Bowl with Texas. In that game, you had guys who weren't playing who were around. And it wasn't important to them. Of course it wasn't. They were leaving. They weren't playing. That stopped last year. If you weren't playing, you weren't going. If you weren't playing, you were announcing and you were done. It doesn't mean that if you're playing that you're definitely coming back. I mean, I don't expect Azeez Ojulari to come back. But if you're playing, you're playing. That's it. If you're not playing, you're not going to be there. So Ben Cleveland, Monty, guys like that, it's disappointing that they didn't get their correct send-off. But they won't be there to not matter. And it's really an odd position for those guys to be in anyway. So that's not going to happen. And the performance a year ago against Baylor was enough for me to see that, Georgia now under Kirby is not going to be about any sort of distraction in any way. And they are focused completely on this game. That they had 2 really good practices that we know of, could be more, matters a lot. That they will be probably missing James Cook is devastating on a couple of different levels. But really, I think the thing to focus on here is that this is a Georgia team that's not worried about missing the playoffs. That was gone in October. This is a Georgia team that has surged lately and is playing well. And this is a Georgia team that maybe wants to get back on the radar, wants to get back on the map. I don't use the term disrespect. I mean, that's overused, particularly in college football. But maybe they feel they've been, sort of forgotten about. This would be a good chance for them to remind everyone that this is as good of a program as anybody in the country. Certainly those who are not playing every single year in the playoff. And Georgia needs to win this game to power forward. Winning it or losing it doesn't set the tone for 2021 necessarily. That's what spring ball is for. That's what August is for. By then, really by January 2nd, nobody will remember this game. But in the moment, this will be an important game. It's not nothing to win a New Year's Six bowl game. And this could be Georgia's third in 3 years. Or in 4 years, excuse me. So that's half of them. And they've only played in 3. So here's their chance to add a little bit more hardware to the trophy room. We'll see if they can do it. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. Have fun at the game. Have fun watching the game. And make sure to go to the website right afterwards, dogpost.com. We'll see you there.